All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's Tridium Talk on the HTML5 Tag Manager. We could be more excited to have you in attendance today as we're really getting excited about Niagara 4.10. This is the next release that we're going to be releasing here in the upcoming weeks. And we've got a good number of features here that we're extremely excited to talk about. And more importantly, we're going to be covering the tag manager today. So before we get started, I just wanted to cover a couple ground rules. And the way we're going to manage this presentation is I will go ahead and give the demonstration, and following the completion of that, we'll provide a question and answer session. And for that effort, if you can just utilize the question and answer dialog that's located at the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to address every one of those questions. And if we are unable to during this forum, we will address them offline and then post them to our Tridium.com website. So before we get started, I am incredibly pleased to have the opportunity to have Mr. Andy Sutton in attendance with me to support with this demonstration. He was the principal architect and lead development engineer who really drove this to completion and has delivered this in 4.10. And a lot of the features and functionality that are resident in this new manager comes from him. And so we are extremely excited to have him on the call so that he can share some of his insights. And let's move on. All right. So what's new in Niagara 4.10? So we've got Niagara 4.10 scheduled for release in the upcoming weeks. We are currently in early access and beta. And with every release of Niagara, we're going to ensure that we are driving value into the core tenets of Niagara. Now, the core tenets of Niagara are visualization, deployment, security, connectivity, certification, and compliance. And when you consider all of these core tenets of Niagara, the most important one is security. And I can assure you with every release, we are going to be laser focused on driving value into the security bucket. Because without security, we can't have these other items. So it's a pledge that we will make, and we will continue to make to each and every one of you, that's going to be the foremost concern. But in addition to that, there's a need to drive value in other areas. And so in 4.10, we certainly delivered on that promise. From the visualization aspect, we have rounded out our tag-based PX bindings feature introduced in 4.9. And now you can use those with system database and virtuals. So it kind of provides you a much more valuable and extensible feature by which you can repurpose your station graphics and deploy them across your entire enterprise portfolio. The next item we have for visualization is we introduced a new media type into the framework that has produced massive performance enhancements from a UI perspective. This new media type is a much more modern, developer-friendly approach at rendering Niagara graphics. And it's something that is really going to address some of the loading times that some customers have brought up. So this new media type is going to be great for the future of Niagara, especially as we move much more towards a cloud-based approach. The next item for visualization is the video surveillance viewer. And what that includes is a enhancement onto the video framework, which was introduced in 4.9. It provides a pre-populated grid by which customers can seamlessly drop cameras onto that grid so that surveillance viewer is created in a really streamlined manner. You can pick any configuration of a grid, whether you want a 2x2, you want a 1x2, 3x3, and what have you. It's a major time saver for setting up that critical surveillance view that our security personnel are accustomed to interacting with on a day-to-day basis. Now, of course, we are here today to discuss the HTML5 tag manager. So we will jump into that here. But let's move on to deployment. So with deployment, we have now moved to the general availability for providing our portability customers access to our ACE engine. Now, the ACE engine is something that's particular to our Edge 10 product line, and that's going to provide much more opportunities for our portability customers to use Niagara on more application-specific controllers or field devices. And then for the next item in deployment, we have some Edge tools updates. And with every release, we want to ensure that we're putting steps into provisioning, for example, which will help save time in disseminating updates for application templates, managing those changes and what have you. And especially as we move towards the edge, we need to ensure that we're providing tools and really workflow efficiency improvements to help you get off the job and to manage these templates in a much more efficient manner. The next item we have for deployment is the bulk certificate signing tool. And this bulk certificate signing tool is really a critical enabler for BACnet Secure Connect, which we are intending to include in the next release for Niagara 4.11. But what this is going to do is it's just a native Workbench tool that enables you to sign as many CSRs as you can with a CA. So could use it, thinking for client cert auth would be something that you could use it for from an existing Workbench feature or existing feature in the framework. So let's move on to connectivity. In 4.9, we introduced MQTT with authentication support for Amazon Web Services. And now we have support for Google. So this is a very exciting feature that we're thinking is going to receive some considerable market traction, considering how many customers and we're seeing moving to adopting the MQTT protocol, especially at the device layer. So we're seeing some interesting market trends relating to that. And as such, we are very excited to get this into 4.10. The next thing we have is going to entice some of our customers that are using our Edge 10 or any portability equivalent that is using our ACE engine or is considered as Edge device. What this is going to do is it's going to change the manner in which that we count Niagara Edge 10s or Edge 10 portability devices in the Niagara network. Traditionally, those Edge devices is counted the same as let's say a Jace, for example. And now in 4.10, you can actually connect, let's say you have a SOUP 1, you can get 10 Edge 10s under your SOUP 1. So basically where it did count as one standard Niagara network connection, now it counts as 0.1. So it's going to add some value, and we understand that those Edge devices are fundamentally different than a Jace, for example, and we have adjusted our license schema to compensate for that. And then last but not least, and this one I think is extremely important to note, is that 4.10 is being considered as a long-term supported release. Now, exactly what does long-term supported release mean for you? It means that you're going to have regular access to update builds, and those update builds will be produced in a scheduled manner such that you can plan your efforts accordingly to pick up those update builds, and each will contain critical defect fixes, of course, any security vulnerabilities, anything like that. We'll always be addressing those. But 4.10 is going to be kind of I think the version that you're going to want to migrate to, just due to the fact that it's going to receive that long-term support. So let's move on to why we are here, the HTML5 tag manager. But before I do that, I kind of wanted to address a fundamental question that I think is, we're dealing with and our customers are dealing with. And it's, why should I use tags in my Niagara station? Outside of when it's driven by a specification or a customer has baked it into a project requirement, why is that important? Why should we continue to advocate on why tags are essential? Well, it's going to enable a rapid analysis of large quantities of disparate data. Now, why is that necessary? If I have an enterprise and I've got multiple buildings that I'm serving. Sometimes the data coming from that could be all in like one mass, I just one database. I can't make sense of what I'm seeing. It just seems like it's just a bunch of data, and that can cause people anxiety. That can really add a bunch of time into your day if you're really needing to make quick decisions on that. And tags helps us make sense of that, because what it's doing is it's putting that metadata associated with that component so that you can really make sense of what you're looking at. And then in addition to that, it's going to provide essential insight into your building systems and equipment operation. Because what I can do is I can just bring up a single tag. Let's say that, I want to see how my VAVs are doing. And I can do an HS VAV if I'm using Haystack. And I can see all of the points associated with my VAVs. I can see how they're doing. I can put further clarification into my tag query to really define what I'm trying to uncover or investigate. Now, if I'm using a bespoke point naming schema, that makes it even more difficult, because there certainly is an opportunity for me to put the wrong key in. The syntax can be difficult sometimes to wrap your head around. And I might not know, for example, that A-0012 means, oh, that's the first floor, the second floor, and area 2. And a lot of these point naming schemas are kind of as such, and they represent our customers because they have their own needs to define these point naming schemas. But tags helps us make sense of that all. It wraps it all together in a nice bow. And it really helps you, it helps me too, kind of take a step back, and it allows us to assume that 1,000-foot perspective. And really, it helps us get our job done. And especially when you're using the HTML5 tag manager, because I think that's the one thing I want to cover here is like, how does this tag manager help you? So one thing it's going to do is it's going to save you valuable time, and it's going to promote workflow efficiency. Now, why? Now, traditionally, in Workbench, if you're using that to view or analyze the tags that you have resident on a component, you have to click on a dialog, and then you have to kind of jump back and forth between tabular views just to determine what components have particular tags. Now, with the HTML5 tag manager, I can quickly view and analyze direct or implied tags via a single interface. I have to no longer click back and forth, right click, hit an edit tags dialog. No, you don't need to do that anymore. We've made this as easy as possible. And the whole point behind it is so that you can spend your time doing other things, right? And then following from that, we provide bulk tagging and deletion, because that's the whole point of that, saving your valuable time, promoting that workflow efficiency. Traditionally, you could do some bulk tagging through other means within Workbench, but with this single interface, you have a full range set of capabilities. And providing that bulk tagging and deletion, that's something that you might run across on a day-to-day basis. And now with this tag manager, will really save you time in that process. The next thing we have is we can export direct and implied tags to CSV. So that's great just for your ongoing management. Let's say for your templating, let's say if you want to just have an understanding of how an existing system has been tagged, that's a great way to collect that information, especially if you want to validate whether my tag rules are doing what I want it to do. I mean, that's critical because, when you're setting up tag rules, it's important to get that validation that what I'm doing or how I program that tag dictionary, I'm getting the intended results. And now with this tag manager, you can quickly jump to that component and you can see those implied or direct tags quickly. So it really helps you validate your tag dictionary configuration as well. And then following from that, It provides an enhanced user experience. Traditionally in Workbench, as I mentioned, you had to jump back between tab to tab, and you had to open Workbench as well. I can't do this just from a browser interface. Well, now we've provided that ability. And even more, if let's say you want to tag from a tablet, you can do that. The interface is set up and is ready for you to get moving, start to get tagging. Now, another reason that it helps with really enhancing the user experience is that I can now use drag and drop functionality with this interface. Traditionally in Workbench, I was unable to do that, and now I am. And that's going to help me as I am navigating through my station, as I am quickly trying to make configuration changes. I'm going to be able to use drag and drop functionality to assign tags to components. And following from that, we've added some intuitive user actions and commands, which again is going to help with that user experience. Instead of having, for example, I select something and then I have to actually say add. Instead, you can just double click on it because that's that type of intuitive user action that you see across other platforms. Now we're bringing it into the HTML5 tag manager. So, more importantly, how do I use the tag manager? All right. So, traditionally, if I'm in my Niagara station, if I wanted to, let's say, look at the tags on a component, I traditionally would have to bring up the edit tags dialog. Now, under the edit tags dialog, I could see, I have one tab for direct, one tab for implied. Now that, this is nice because I can, see those separately. But again, if I'm trying to get the job done and I want to figure out what is on my AHU1 quickly without having to jump back and forth, instead, now I can just quickly select direct or implied, and I have a quick list of all of the direct and implied tags associated with my air handling unit. So it's, if you just compare the previous edit tags dialog with this, it's just cutting down the number of clicks. We're giving you a much more modern view by which you can get your job done quickly. Now let's move to the browser because, that's an important thing to note here too, is that you're able to do tagging from a browser, right? And that's going to be a major time saver because now I don't have to load Workbench. I can just access the station via the browser. And traditionally with an admin account, because let's remember that when I'm tagging, this is something that probably we're going to see our admin level types interacting with on a day-to-day basis, more so than our typical end user. So in end user, I mean like our building engineer, our OEM folks, or sitting in a basement in a chill room, right? These folks are the ones that are going to be interacting with their equipment. This is a much more admin level functionality. But we did want to provide it via a browser because there's certainly value here. Not having to roll a truck out of the site and have my thick client with me. I can just log on to my customer's machine and hit the station and I can get to tagging. So it's great by virtue of that, right? So let's, if you saw, I was on the config space within my station and I pulled down to select the tag manager view. So you're going to be able to use that view selector to access the tag manager on every component within your Niagara station. So important thing to note there. And what I'm going to do is, let's remove this config component because I think that's an important thing to note here, is the tag manager operates based on the select component window. So if I don't have anything in the select components window, I'm not going to have any tags show up in the lower right window. So kind of an important thing to note is that you're going to always need to have a tag selected, or a component, excuse me, a component selected if you're going to do your tagging. So I can bring up the view via a right click. So let's go back to our error handler. And what you're seeing here is I have just my direct tags, right? Now, traditionally, I should always be using tag rules in my tag dictionary to tag my components. The reason being is because implied tags are less expensive than direct tags. Um, Nevertheless, we understand that direct tags will be required from time to time, but we strongly encourage customers to make your tag dictionary as robust as possible to ensure that when you are tagging your components, they're getting tagged via implied tags or through tag rules. So that's an important thing to note. And so one thing I wanted to show you is that, I can also just view implied tags. I don't have to view both direct and implied. But let's say I want to do my CSV export. So I've got both my direct and implied for my AHU. Just to do a CSV export, I can pick, let's say I want to include the value type as well, which might be necessary. If let's say I have a string tag, for example, but I can export these results to a CSV, for example, download it, and then of course get my CSV results accordingly. So pretty simple, right? Great way to keep on tracking what I have within my stations and in my components. So let's add a direct tag. So how do I go about doing that? So let's say I want to go to my haystack tag dictionary. And as I'm looking through my AHU, I've noticed, okay, it's a variable volume style error handling unit. Looks like I've got most thing tagged, but oh, I think I might have forgotten something. So what I can do is I can simply scroll down to where I find the appropriate tag that I'm looking to assign to this component. Or if I want, I could certainly use this freeform text field to bring up any tags that fit the query that I have put into the field. So let's just say for the moment that I'd like to add an AC tag. Now I've got a couple ways that I can do that. I can drag and drop onto the component, or I can double click and it will add. So really quickly, you can see that when I compare it to our existing Workbench implementation of the edit tags dialog, seeing those major workflow efficiencies that, again, are going to help you get the job done right, and so that you can move on to other things, right? So with direct tagging, though, one thing I wanted to show you is that, let's say, for example, that I want to bulk tag. And before I do that, let me just show you delete as well, because, I did show you that I can double click, I can drag over, but I can also hit the add button, right? So you've got 3 different options you can use. And then let's say I want to delete. Again, from delete, I can do delete tags. But if you notice here, I have the option whereby I can delete from all selected components. Now that's necessary if I'm going to be bulk tagging, which I'm going to show you here in a second. So let's say I'll go ahead and delete this, just fine. Now, let's go ahead and I'll tell you what. I'm going to do a search, and this is really where this tool gets extremely powerful. This is the Niagara search service, which was introduced in Niagara 4. And you can bring this side drawer open just by clicking on the search icon. This can be enabled via the user profile. But again, this is something that you may want to expose to your end user customers. They might need some instruction on how to form the appropriate syntaxes to ensure that they're getting the right query, or excuse me, getting the right results from their query. But still, nevertheless, it's something that's incredibly powerful, especially when we're going to use it with the tag manager. So let's say that I want to find components in my station that, fit that AHU or have a display name that's like AHU. Now, say I want to tag both my AHU1 and my AHU2, and I want to do it quickly. I want to put that AC tag back on these air handling units. If these are both highlighted, all I've got to do, double click AC, and they're on both. Really simple. Or I could just similarly, with the one component, I could drag them over and I could have that tag get assigned to both of those components. Really fast, quick way. You weren't able to do that in the previous implementation of edit tags and Workbench, but you're certainly able to do that now. So really fantastic time saver. And then for bulk deleting, it's the same thing, right? Let's say I want to do this. I've got both my components selected and highlighted accordingly. I can say delete tags. And as you saw from the previous demonstration I showed you related to this, I'll preserve that delete from all selected components, and I'll say OK. And then next thing you know, the AC tag is gone from the air handling units. So just incredibly powerful tool, especially when you're using it with the Niagara search service. So let's come up with a little bit more practical use case. Let's say that I'm really, I run into a situation whereby I've noticed that I've got a 2-floor building and the terminal units weren't tagged with a floor tag. Okay, so I come on site and I say, all right, I'm going to use my search service, and I'm just going to use the end name like, but then I realized, wow, I'm getting 63 results. So what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing some histories. So what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to refine my query a little bit more. So since I know that I have already created a tag dictionary whereby haystack tags are being applied to my components, let's say that I'm going to add the HS equip tag, because I know it's going to be on there, right? I validated that. So I've got 18 results here. Let's say that I want to pull them all in, and I can drag all of them in quickly, right? Now it's a quick drag and drop. I've got all 18 items that I found through my query now represented in the selected components window. Now let's say that I want to add my HS floor tag, but I realized, for example, that after going through haystack, let me see if there's a floor tag. Oh, there is no floor tag. So I'm presented with a challenge. Now, traditionally, I should have covered this through my tag dictionary. I should have configured it correctly such that that floor tag gets automatically applied along with the relation too, because that's going to be another critical thing. What I can do instead is say that, you know what, I've got these tags defined. What I need to do is I need to sort these according to the floor. So what I'll say is, all right, look, I'm going to pick all my VAVs that are on floor 1, and I'm going to add an ad hoc tag to it. And I'm going to say HS floor. And I'm going to say, all right, so I know that's, say it's a string tag, say it's 01. Boom. Now you see that I have that HS floor tag. But when I go to my ones on floor 2, I don't have that, right? But now what I can do just as simply, just do that ad hoc again, add ad hoc tag again, and simply add HS floor, make it a string, and this is 02, and then I've got that tagged. So really quick and easy way when you're using the Niagara search service to tag your components in a comprehensive manner, especially when you have a level of complexity added to the mix, where you've got a difficult point naming schema. You've got thousands of components you need to search through. This tag manager, especially when used with the Niagara search service, is incredibly powerful. It will save you so much time. And then in addition to that, once you've got them tagged, then you're going to be able to take advantage of all those natural enhancements that tagging provides. So a very powerful feature, and it's something that we are eagerly awaiting to get into each and every one of your hands so that you can validate some of the features we put in here, its corresponding functionality, as well as provide any essential feedback on how you think it can be improved or on anything really, because we love to hear from you. So let's move on. One thing I wanted to note is, we are getting close to the release of Niagara 4.10. And as such, with our previous releases, we will have a training course for 4.10 that will be uploaded to the university site here. It is not up there at the moment, but we are working with our training team to get that done. And by the time of the release, you should start seeing some content. And if you don't see it at the time of the release, please check back because we are expecting to see that content roll in over the next couple of weeks. So just make a mental note, put something in your calendar to kind of check back in on some of the feature content and tutorials that we are going to have on the Tridium University. So another important thing to note is following this demonstration, let's say you want to revisit it, you want to take a look at some of the things that we discussed. You can find this Tridium Talk, along with many others, on our Tridium.com website under the Services and Support tab, and then navigate to Events. So one thing definitely important to note is when you visit Tridium.com, you might notice that things look a little bit different. And we're hoping you do notice that because we are very excited to roll out our new website. We've had multiple people working on that within our organization, and we've done some major enhancements to the site to really help you get the information that you need in a much more timely manner, because that's what we're about here. We want to save you time. We want to save you money. And so please visit our Tridium.com website, take a look at the events tab, and take a look at some of those Tridium talks that we have there. And then certainly last but not least, our Niagara Pro Tip series has been a big hit. James Johnson, Kevin Mamajek just done a fantastic job at producing these videos. And I can speak for myself. I'm excited to see some more content coming from these gentlemen. And you can visit the YouTube link I've got down here at the bottom of the presentation. If you want to check out some of those Niagara Pro Tip series videos, please do so. We are intending to upload more. And there's one last thing that I wanted to cover. This is kind of a little different. And the reason it's different is because it doesn't really hit into the HTML5 tag manager, but it is something that relates to tags. And I really wanted to bring it up because I think this one's going to excite some folks. So this is a little hidden gem, what I'll call, in 4.10. We introduced a new implied tag, and it's called n_has_px_view. And what's going to happen is, let me clear all of these from my component tree, is that any component that has a px view assigned to it will now have this implied tag associated with that component. Now, why is this great? This is fantastic because if I'm using the search service, I now have a quick and easy way to find exactly which components have graphical views or px views assigned to them. Just really quick. I mean, and let's say that, I want to add an ad hoc tag to these components that have that px view. Again, drag and drop. Just do that same process. Add that ad hoc tag. It can be whatever you want, custom tag dictionary. But again, these are all intended to help you make sense of what you're working on so that you can be more efficient. And then just to show you real quick, just to see it in action, if you look at the implied tag, you're going to see, here you go. It's that n_has_px_view. So very excited to roll that out. We think that one's going to be extremely powerful, and I wanted to kind of cover it at the end. It's not really related to the tag manager, but it's germane to what we're talking about. So without any further ado, let's move to the questions and answers. Let's see what we have here. All right. All right, let's move to the first one. Jason. So Jason, a question with regards to connectivity and Google Authentication. Any plans to integrate Microsoft Auth in the near future? We've actually had a couple customers ask about that, Jason. It's a fantastic question. And we are absolutely seeking to expand our MQTT coverage. Insofar as that, being on the roadmap for a particular release, we don't have it tied to a particular release, but it is something that has been noted as a demonstrable need for MQTT. So that is something that I think we'll move towards at a later release. All right. Plan for other ontologies such as Brick, for example, digital building, Google Digital Buildings. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're kind of evaluating where the industry is heading from a tagging perspective. Now we've seen the introduction of multiple schemas. Like Eric, you bring up a great point. Google Digital Buildings is certainly a big one. And we've seen these big data companies are trying to make a play to get into the building space, and it makes sense, right? I mean, think of the amount of data, the raw data we have resident within the buildings domain. Makes sense that these guys would want to start getting involved in it. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're still in the planning stages, figuring out what we want to approach from an ontological perspective. Haystack 4 has come up as well, but at the moment, I think we're going to still stick with Haystack 3 as we have it now. But I'm keeping an eye on these items. Brick, Google Digital Buildings. Those are things that, as the standards continue to evolve, it's something that we're going to pay close attention to. And if we can include support, we certainly will. I can't say that with your custom tag dictionaries, you can get close to it. You can't exactly get to the point where you're implementing the Brick schema, but due to the flexibility within our tag dictionary service, I think you could kind of create a custom tag dictionary that can satisfy your needs or your tagging needs. All right. Let's see. So CSV imports. So that's, if you're talking about a tag dictionary, we have not changed anything related to tag dictionaries or anything like that, importing them. Let's see. All right. Moving. All right. Yeah, so you can tag your points from any station. So you can be at a J station, you can be in a supervisor. So it's up to you. You can also from Edge 10. All right. 410 release. What we're looking at right now, again, is going to be in the next couple of weeks. We do not have a definitive date set up, but just stay tuned because it's going to be within the next couple of weeks. So it's coming soon. Can't give you the specific date, but within the next few weeks, absolutely. So just continue to stay tuned. We will ensure that we are canvassing the community with the appropriate marketing communiques so that you can make your plans to incorporate this release. All right. Brick schema, get that. Let's see. All right. So, Lucas, for your CSV, the export from the tag manager is really kind of intended to be, hey, this is for your information. This is how this component has been tagged. Insofar as importing it into another station so that you could tag, your other components, One thing I would say, I'll tell you what, Andy,
Yeah,
I'm gonna jump in
I,
on
I
this.
was, yeah, I was going to say that I mean, it sounds a bit like a kind of templating thing rather than so. Currently, we haven't got a facility to import tags.
Hmm.
Um, but if it's a sort of as it were, a bulk import of tags on something to another station, it sounds more like a kind of templating thing. That's the closest thing that I can think of to that.
Yep. Yeah. Right. So, Lucas, you would, like Andy said, you would probably want to use templating for that. All right. Let's see. Um, did you want to pick this one up, Andy? Since the PX file contains orders and histories, surely some pseudo grouping could be applied here in the tag manager. PX file knows what components are on it, so we could group them dynamically using the PX file.
Uh, I think because they're actually in PXXML, we don't currently see them as components as far as the tag manager is concerned. I mean, I suppose in theory, although I suppose the points that the PX file is actually pointing to could be tagged,
Right.
but I don't think currently we're kind of we have the ability to kind of apply a tag to the actual, as it were, the PX file reference, which could, I suppose, if it's an include, it could be kind of
Yeah.
lots of components. So I don't think we currently do that.
Well, uh, so with custom tag dictionaries, I think that provides an opportunity, for customers to kind of get creative with the manner in which they're using tags to inform their efforts on, which components have PX files. For example, their components could have multiple PX views associated with it. So making sense of those can sometimes be difficult. And using a tag dictionary or custom tag dictionary can help you with that effort. All right. Let's see. I got a bunch here. Can you display the tag applied to a point on a PX graphic?
I would say the answer to that is if it's direct tag, yes. Probably not if it's an implied tag.
All right.
A direct tag is a slot on the component, so you could definitely show that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the implied tag is actually a rule when we're actually kind of looking up, so it's not kind of explicitly on the point itself.
Mm-hmm.
Traversing up and down hierarchies, I believe you can go up and down. I think you just reverse the arrow.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see here. Can we use 4.7 and 4.10 at the same time? Handling it's going to depend on the manner in which your system architecture is configured. One site 4.7 and one site 4.10. Are they both supervisors serving those sites? Are they connecting together? I mean, those are some of those kind of clarification questions we would need to know before being able to handle that. All right, so we did that one. Let's see. We do not recommend skipping any releases. We feel that every release, is going to offer its own kind of inherent value, and I think customers are going to want to migrate to certain versions based on the features resident therein. But to be honest, we always recommend that you upgrade to the latest and greatest because you're missing out on some of those workflow efficiency enhancements, some of those new cutting edge features that we're putting into the release. So it's always going to be recommended that we keep our customers at the latest and greatest. Let's see. All right. I think we're at time. Again, I'd like to thank everyone so much. Andy, thank you for your efforts today. We
Pleasure. Thank you.
greatly appreciate your participation. Again, this recording will be posted on Tridium.com under our events tab, and keep your eyes and ears open for Niagara 4.10. It's coming soon, and I hope everyone has a great day. Take care.